Hey guys, this video is sponsored by Coding Phase. Coding Phase offers courses to help you learn to build real-life projects and advance your career. With courses in technologies like React, Node.js, Laravel, Python, you'll be on your way to becoming a professional developer. You have the options to buy courses outright or to pay a very low monthly fee and get access to every single course. So check out codingphase.com or click the link in the description below to receive 50% off. Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, we're going to be building a project using the YouTube Data API as well as Oauth to log in. All right, so just to give you a quick demo, if we click the login button here, and we're using Materialized for the UI, by the way. We're going to choose a Google account, and it's going to log us in, and then we're going to get data for a YouTube channel. And you can set the default channel to whatever you want. Mine is set to mine. And then we have the subscriber count, the views, the videos, the description. You can visit the channel in a new tab, and then we have the latest videos. Okay, so we're going to make another request to the API to get the videos. And then to change the channel name, we can go over to this form, and let's say we want Google developers. We can just go ahead and click that, and then it's going to show us all the information for Google developers. All right, and if we put in something that doesn't exist, we're just going to get a little alert that says no channel by that name, and then we can log out. So that's what we'll be building. Now, the reason I chose to do this is because the documentation for not just the YouTube API, but for any Google API is just so overwhelming. There's so much in it, and there's a million different code examples that aren't that great. So many different options, and it's very confusing. So I figure my job is to go through it all and then create a practical application so you guys can better understand it. Now, we will be referring to the JavaScript Quickstart quite a bit, especially for the authentication part. This is actually not that bad. So we'll be using that kind of as a starting point and then going from there. All right, so this is just pure JavaScript, no frameworks or jQuery or anything like that. And notice that it's on codedemos.com. So the reason for that is because when I registered the Auth Key, it wouldn't let me use localhost for some reason. It wouldn't let me actually log in or do anything. So I had to use a real domain that's live on the internet. So what I'm going to do is just FTP my files up to code demos when we do our testing in the browser. All right, so that's it. Hopefully you guys like this little project, and let's get started. Alright guys, so I've cleared out the root of codedemos.com, and this is where I'll be deploying the application as we test. I just have an FTP client open, so I'll just upload the files. It's just an index.html and a JavaScript file. Alright, now as with most APIs, we need to register a key. Since we're using Oauth as well to log in, we need an Oauth client ID. So what you're going to have to do if you're following along, and I would suggest you follow along, is go to your Google Cloud Console. So if you just search Google Console, we'll click here, and it's actually, the domain is console.cloud.google.com. And if you've never used this before, you probably won't have a project, so you can just create a new project. I have one called dev1 on this account, so I'm just going to use that. And then once you've done that, you just go to API Services, API and Services, and click on Enable APIs and Services. And then what we're going to do is search for YouTube, and we want the YouTube Data API version 3, at least at this time. So we're going to click on that, and then you may already have it enabled if you've used it before, but I'm going to go ahead and click Enable. And it just takes a few seconds to set that up and enable it. And then we need to create our credentials. And we're basically going to create two things. We're going to create an API key for YouTube for this API, and then we're also going to create an Oauth client ID. So let's click on Create Credentials, and we're going to keep this selected. And then for this option, we're using a web browser with JavaScript, and I believe we can just click Public Data here. We shouldn't be accessing anything that is private, I don't believe. And then for here, we'll just click this button, what credentials do I need? And it gives us our API key, excuse me, and we'll click Done. Now from here, we also need to create an Auth key. So let's go down to Oauth client ID. And then you're going to choose Web Application. You might get a little message that says you have to set up your screen, your auth screen or whatever. Just go through that. Just put in your app name or whatever. Here, Web client 1, that's fine, I'll just leave it. And then we need to put in some authorized domains. Now this is where I had an issue with localhost. It wouldn't let me, it lets me enter it here, but it wouldn't actually get the data with it. So that's why I'm using this code demos. And you can, you can try it with localhost if you want. I just couldn't figure it out. Okay, I'll add it there and here. And create. Okay, create. And there we go. So now we have a client ID. All right, and the client ID is okay to share. It's your client's secret. You don't. Yeah, web client, client ID, and then this is our API key. All right, so that stuff's all set up. That's the boring stuff. So now what I'm going to do is go to VS Code, and I have an empty folder called YouTube API app. Okay, that's what I called it. And I'm going to create two files here. One is index.html, and then another is main.js. All right, so let's go to the index.html and let's just add this stuff real quick. I don't want to copy and paste it because I like to do start from finish, and in case anyone's following along. So let's change the title to YouTube. We'll just say YouTube channel data. And then we're going to add our Materialized link here so that we can use Materialized CSS. So we'll go to materializedcss.com, get started. And we want to grab the CSS link here and paste it in. And then let's grab the JavaScript link, which is this one here, and paste that in down here right above the ending body tag. Okay, so now let's quickly build the UI. So we have a simple navigation. So right under the body tag, we'll put a nav with the class of black, which will give it a black background. And let's do nav-wrapper. And a container class, and in here we're going to have an A tag with the class of brand-logo, and it's just going to go nowhere. And as far as the text, you can put what you want, but I'm just going to put YouTube channel API. Let's do, yeah, we'll say channel, or not channel API, channel data. And that's the nav bar. So if I save that, like I said, when we start working with the API, we have to use that remote domain codedemos.com. But for now, I'm just going to use live server to view it, and it should look like that. So under the nav, we'll go right under the nav tag here, and I'm just going to put a line break to push everything down, and then we're going to put a section, an HTML5 section tag, and we want to put a container inside here to push everything to the middle. We'll have a paragraph that will say log in with Google. And then underneath that, we're going to have a button. I'm going to give it a couple materialized classes. Let's just do button and red, like that. And then inside here, we'll say log in. And then very important, this needs to have an ID, which I'm going to call authorized button. Okay, and then let's create another button. I'll just copy this one down, and let's see, we're going to change the ID to sign out button, and let's change this to log out. Okay, so that's our buttons. Underneath that, let's put another line break, and then we want an ID of content. And inside here is where we want to have, we're going to use the grid. So we want to use a class of row, and we're going to have two 6-column divs. So we want to do a class of call with the class of S6, and I'm going to put 2 of those in. Now this first one will have the form. The second one will have the channel data. So the collection, the list of like the subscribers, the view count and stuff, that'll go here, but we're not going to put anything in here manually. It's going to come in through the JavaScript. So I'm just going to give this an ID of channel-data so we can grab onto it. And then here we're going to just put in, we're just going to put in our form. So let's say form with the ID of channel-form. We don't need an action. And inside the form, let's put a div with the class of input-field. and let's put an actual input, and let's see, this will have an ID of channel dash input. Okay, and we'll give it a placeholder, and we'll just say enter channel name. Okay, and then underneath that we just want a submit button, so I'm going to say input with the type of submit, and for the value we'll just say get channel data, and let's give this a couple classes as well. So we'll say class equals btn, and let's do a gray, but we're going to lighten it a little bit, so we'll say lighten -2, which is just a materialized class. I do have a Udemy course on Materialize if you're interested, but it is a little outdated. I have to update it for version 1. So let's see, we want to go under the row, which ends right here, and this is where our videos are going to show up. So we want to do a class of row because it's going to be a grid, and then an ID of video dash container. Okay, we don't put anything in here, it's all going to be added through the JavaScript. Okay, so that should be it for the HTML. Now if we save this and we take a look, it should look like this. Okay, so we have this on the input on this side, and then this will be like all the data once we search for it. Now we initially want to hide the actually, you know what, I want this input to be a little shorter, a little smaller, so I'm just going to add let's see, to this input field right here, I'm just going to add call and then S6 like that, and that should make it a little shorter. Okay, so we want to initially hide everything, really. We want to hide the buttons because we only want the login to show when we're logged in. I mean, when we're not logged in, we want the logout to show when we are logged in. And we only want this whole area, the content, to show when we're actually logged in. So what we need to do is hide all this stuff. We need to hide both buttons, and we want to hide this whole div of content. So I'm not going to create a whole style sheet just to do that, so I'm going to use inline styling, which I don't like to do, but again, I'm not going to create a style sheet just to do this. So we want content, we want authorized dash button, and what was the other one? Sign out dash button, and we just want all of those to display none. Okay, so if I go back, now it should just show login with Google. Okay, so now we're ready to start dealing with the API. Now we have to include a couple things down here. We need our script file, so let's say script source and then main.js, and then right above it, actually below it, yeah, we want to put it, we'll put it below it. We need the script to the API. So let's go to the documentation, this Quickstart. So it's developers.google.com/v3/quickstart/js. And we want to go down to the bottom here, and we want to grab this script tag right here. Okay, so basically it's on load, it's going to call this function called handle client load. So we're going to create that along with a bunch of other stuff, but let's paste that in. Okay, and it's using this async defer, and then we should be all set. Yeah, we should be all set with the HTML now. So let's see, let's go to main.js, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to be doing in here is the stuff that's in this documentation page. We need to get our variables, some stuff from Google. We need to assign our elements. In this case, they only have the buttons, but we have a lot more to assign. The handle client load, which gets called automatically down here when we included our script, we call handle client load. From there, I'm just going to kind of go through this real quick with you. From there, it's going to load the Auth2 library, and it's going to call an init client function. And that's going to be right here, where it's actually going to initialize the client. Okay, this GAPI object, this is what we use, and there's methods attached to it. We load it here, and then we initialize the client here by passing in the variables. Okay, the variables above. It returns a promise. Then we listen for sign-in state changes. So when we log in, when we click the login button or the logout button, this fires off, and we want to call update sign-in status. Okay, so that update sign-in status is down here, and basically if we're signed in, if we're logged in, we want to hide the login button. We're going to set the display property to none, and we want to show the sign out button. We also want to get the channel data with this get channel function. Else, if we log out, we want the authorized button to show, the login button, and we want the sign out button to not show because we're logged out. Okay, and when we actually click those buttons, which happens right here, authorized button on click, it'll call handle auth click. When we click sign out, it'll call handle sign out click, and those are these two functions. And these are very simple. We're just calling the API, or calling the API object, calling auth to get auth instance, and either sign in or sign out, okay, based on whatever button we click. And then down here we have the get channel. So once you log in, it calls get channel, and you can grab the whatever channel you want goes in here inside these options, and then you specify what you want from the channel. We want snippet, content details, and statistics. Okay, and then that gives us a promise with the response, and we can do whatever we want with the response. So that's the gist of what's going on here. So we're going to do pretty much that same thing, just more in depth, and then we're also going to fetch videos. Notice that documentation has nothing to do with actually getting videos. It's just channel data. So let's go ahead and put in options here. So we want our client ID. Okay, so we want to set that. What did I do? Client ID, const client ID, and let's go to credentials, and we want this here, not this API key. You want to make sure you get the OAuth client ID. And let's paste that in right here. Okay, and then for the other variables, I'm just going to grab from, where is it? From the page I was just on. So we have discovery docs and scopes. Okay, they're also the authorize and sign out button. They're just grabbing it from the DOM. So let's grab these. And I'm just going to change these vars to const, and then get rid of these comments here. All right, so discovery docs is an array of URLs. We only need this one URL, which is to the REST, YouTube version 3 REST. And then scopes, we're using this youtube.read-only. And that's because we're not doing anything in our application that is gonna like change anything on a channel or anything like that. It's just data. We're just reading public read-only data. And then here we're just grabbing the authorize button and sign out button from the DOM. Now we have a bunch of other stuff to grab from the DOM as well. So we have the main content. So let's do const content equals document dot. We'll just use get element by ID. You could use query selector if you want. And then this is the ID of content. All right, and I'm just going to copy this down. Let's see, a couple more times. And then we want to get the channel form. So channel dash form. And we'll call this channel form. And then we also want the channel input. So the actual input value, we want to get that. Let's see, that's going to be, that is an ID of channel input, channel dash input. And then we want the video container. All right. So that's what we want to grab for now. Now let's add in some of the stuff that's in the documentation. We want to load the Auth2 library. So we need that function called handle client load. That's going to be the first function that fires off because that's part of the script tag. So handle client load. And all we need to do here is take this GAPI object, which is available to us because of that script tag, and then we want to just call the load method, and we want to pass in here, sorry about the sirens, we want to pass in that the client we're loading is Auth2. Okay, that's the library we're using, and then it's going to call a function called init client. Okay, so we have to create that init client, which initializes the API client library. It also sets up sign-in listeners. Okay, so we create a function called init client. Okay, just like we specified above, and then we call this GAPI object, and then a method called client.init, or a property called client, and then a method called init. And inside here, we want to pass in some options, which are going to be discovery docs. Okay, so discovery docs like that, and then we're going to set it to the variable above discovery docs. We also want to put in the client ID like that, which will be the client ID variable, and then we also want to put in the scope. So scope is going to be equal to the scopes variable. All right, now once we call this client.init, it's going to return a promise. So we want to do a .then, and then inside this .then, let's put an arrow function. And we want to do some stuff here. So we want to listen for sign-in state changes. So listen for sign-in state changes. So every time we sign in a route, it should listen for that. So we want to use that GAPI object. We want to use Auth2, and we want to call get auth instance. Okay, and then we'll do .is signed in .listen, and then we want to call a function called update sign in status. So sign in status. Okay, so basically this is the callback. It's going to listen, and then we're going to call update sign in status. Now we also want to handle the initial sign in state. So we'll say handle initial sign in state. I might misspell some stuff, guys, but I don't really care if it's in the comment. So I'll say update sign in status, and we want to pass in here the GAPI object, and we want to call auth2 dot get auth instance, and we want to pass in, or we want to do dot is sign in, and then dot get. Oops. Okay, so that'll get the initial state. And then we need to handle the clicks of the login and logout button. So remember, we have authorized button, and we're going to say dot on click. Then we want to call a function called handle auth click. Okay, and then for the sign out button, so sign out button dot on click, we're going to set that to handle sign out click. Okay, and we're going to create those functions. So now what we need to do is create this update sign in status. We need to create that function. So let's go down here and create it. And that's going to take in a property called is sign in. And let's put a comment here saying what this does. This will update UI sign in state changes. Okay, so what we want to do is check to see if we're signed in. So we want to say if is sign in, and we're also going to have an else. And then we need to control our UI based on if we're signed in or not. So we know that if we are signed in, we want the login button to not show because we're already logged in. We want the sign in button to show. If we're signed in, we want the content area to show. We also want the video container stuff to show. And then we want to call get channel. We want a function that will actually fetch the data because we haven't done that yet. All we've done so far is deal with authentication. So what we want to do is set authorized button dot style dot display equal to none. okay, because remember we're signed in at this point. And then let's copy this down a couple more times, and then this one here, this will be for the sign out. So let's say sign out button style display. We want to set that to block because we want it to display. We also want content style display to display block. And remember, these are coming from up here. So content, sign out button, all this stuff. We want video container to also display. So this will be video container, and we want that to display as block. Okay, else then we want to hide a bunch of stuff, right? So I'm just going to copy these and put this in here. And the authorized button should now show. We want the login button to show if we're not logged in. The rest of this stuff should be hidden. So none for the logout, none for the content, and none for the video container. All right, so that just handles the UI based on if we're logged in or not. So now we actually need the handle auth click and handle sign out click. So let's say handle login. So function handle auth click. And then all we're going to do is take that GAPI object. We're going to use auth2, and we're going to call getAuth instance, and we simply need to just call sign in. Okay, that'll sign us in. To log out, same thing. So I'm just going to grab that, and we'll say handle log out, except this is going to be handle sign out click. That's it, right? Handle sign out click. Yeah. Okay, and then we just want to call sign out instead of sign in. Okay, so now one thing I didn't add up here is if we're signed in, we don't just want to show things, we want to call get channel. That's where we're actually going to interact with the API. So we want to call get channel, and I'm going to pass in a default channel. Okay, and that default channel I'm actually going to put up here. So I'm going to say const default channel, and I'm going to set it to Tech Guy Web, which is actually the official channel name of my channel. So because it used to be Tech Guy Computer Services. But let's go down here back to yeah, we need to create this now, get channel. So you know, just say get channel from API, and let's create the function which takes in a channel. And for now, let's just console.log channel. Now, we're not doing anything to fetch any data yet, but I do want to just test the authentication. Now, if I go to my browser, if I go to the local server and reload, I'm not even going to see the button, because if I open up my Chrome tools, you'll see this message here. Okay, not a valid origin for client. So basically, the domain I'm on is not going to work with the client ID that I have. So that's why I have to use codedemos.com, or you have to use something else. And like I said, I used to be able to put in localhost and it would work, but I don't know why it's not now. Maybe it has something to do with live server, or maybe they just stopped allowing it. I'm not sure. But and if you guys know, then let me know in the comments. But what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to use my local server anymore. So I'm going to just go ahead and stop VS Code's local server, and I'm just going to close this tab up, and I'm going to go to codedemos.com, and I just want to bring over my files. I'm going to upload them real quick using FTP. So let me upload what I have, and let's go ahead and reload. And now you'll see the button shows, and if I open up Chrome tools, I don't have that error. Okay, that's because codedemos.com is a valid URL for the key that I'm using. So what I'm going to do is click login. We should get a pop-up. I'm going to choose an account. We'll have to allow. And now there we go. We can see the form here. Okay, and it's logging Tech Guy Web because that's the default channel name, and I said to log that. So let's try the log out, and it works. That goes away. Okay, we'll log back in. Good. So we know that so far so good. We have the authentication working. And you guys could implement this login on your site. If you have a back end, you could put the credentials in a database or whatever. But we're just using it just to be able to show the UI here. So let's go back to VS Code. Let's see. And now we have to deal with actually getting the channel data, because right now we haven't done anything like that yet. So to do this, we're going to use the GAPI, or the GAPI object. Let's get rid of this, and let's say gapi.client.youtube.channels. Okay, now this has a method called list. So that's what we want to call, is list. And then that takes in an object with part. And in here it's basically, what do we want to get? We want to get snippet. And if you go to the documentation, it'll show you exactly what's included in these different parts. But I'm going to show you that as well in the console. We also want content details. Now, content details is where you get the playlist ID so that you can fetch videos. And then we also want statistics. Okay, and these are just public statistics. It's not like your analytics, like how much you make and stuff like that, how much a channel makes and all that crap. And then we want for username, and then this is where the channel name goes. Now we're passing that in here, so that's what we're going to put as the channel variable. Now this will give us a promise back, so we want to do .then, and then let's see. Actually, you know what? We're going to do .then. I'm also going to do a .catch, and this is where if there's no channel by that name, so we'll get an error. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to alert the user, and I'm going to say no channel by that name. Okay, now all of our work is going to go in this .then. So this will actually give us a response. So we want to put in a response and an arrow. Or you could do function parameter response if you want. So in here, let's console log the response and see what we get. Okay, so this is what's going to make the request, and then we get the response. So let's go, let me make sure I upload this. And then we'll go back to Chrome, and let's reload. And then this is the response we get. So let's take a look at it. If we look in, it's given us a 200, so it's a good response. We have headers, which aren't really important, but in result, we have this items. And then we have one item, which is going to be the channel details. So we have the ID of the channel, and then we have the three things we asked for: content details, snippet, and statistics. Now, snippet has like the title of the channel, it has some thumbnails, it has the description of the channel, the custom URL, the country, and all that stuff. Statistics is where like the video count, the view count, subscriber count, all that stuff is. And then content details has this related playlist object, and it has this uploads value. Okay, so we can use this to actually fetch videos, and we're going to do that later. And that's the thing with the YouTube API, is you have to kind of do two steps to get videos. You have to get the channel info, and then use this content details to get the video. So we're going to deal with the video stuff last. We just want to get that channel data over here first, which we can pull out of all this. So let's do that. Let's go back to VS Code, and let's see. We're going to want to construct some output here. So what I'll do, I'm going to leave the console log response, and let's create, we want to get the items. You saw how we got in the response. We had result, inside that we had items, inside that we had an array of objects, which is just one object. So we want to basically get that first one. So to do this, we're going to say const channel equals response dot result dot items, and then we want the first one, so 0. Okay, so that's our channel. And then we need to start to construct our output. So I'm going to use let here and just initialize a variable called output. Okay, actually, no, we're not doing that yet. That's for the videos when we actually have to loop through them. So I'll use const because we're not manipulating this in any way. Let's say output equals, and we want to set this to backticks so that we can use a template literal, we can use variables and stuff without concatenation. And let's put a UL with the class of collection, which is a materialized class. And inside here we're going to have a bunch of list items. So let's do lists with class equals collection dash item. Again, just for materialize, for design. And then this will be, let's say, ID colon, and then we'll put in this syntax so we can use a variable. We'll take that channel object and we'll get the ID from it. Remember, the ID is directly available right in items, and I can show you that right here. So it's, let's see, so we have result, items, and let's close these up, and ID is right here. Okay, so we can just do .id. For the other stuff, we'll have to do like snippet.title because it's inside snippet, but ID is right in there. So let's see, I'm going to just copy this down. And what's the next thing we want to get? Let's get the, actually, I'm sorry, I wanted the title to be first. So ID should be second, title should be first. So this will be snippet dot title, because you saw it was in the snippet object, and then we'll change this to title, if I can spell it. All right, and then let's see, we want to get the subscriber count. We'll say subscribers, and that's going to be in the statistics dot subscriber count. Okay. Now notice that we're getting like statistics, snippet. That's because that's what we asked for up here. There's other stuff that we can ask for, and if you look at the documentation, it should show you the different things. I don't know, is it on this page? Oh, it's not on this page. There's somewhere though that shows you all the different things you can ask for. Might be this one. Part. Yeah, right here. So like snippets, statistics, you can get like the content owner details, content details, brand settings. There's all different stuff in all of this. So this, I mean, it's a huge API. But yeah. So subscriber count. Let's also get the view count. So we'll say views. So this is total views, and this is in statistics. Dot view count. And what else? We want video count as well, so let's do video count, also in statistics. We'll say videos, and then I think that's good. So under the UL, I'm going to put a paragraph, and this is where I want to put the description. So I'm going to say channel dot, and this is available in snippet, so snippet dot description. All right. Then let's see, I also want to link to the channel, so I'm going to put an HR here right underneath. Oops. And here I'm going to put an A tag. Let's give it a class of BTN gray, and let's do darken -2. Okay, and then we're also going to put, we want it to open on a different page, so let's do target underscore blank, and then the href will go to https youtube.com, and then we can get the custom URL in the snippet. So we can say channel.snippet.custom URL, like that. And then in here we'll just say visit channel. Okay, I'll save that. Prettier is gonna kind of just format it a little bit. And then what we want to do is display that on the page, because right now we're just constructing it. So what I'm going to do is create a separate function for that. Actually, yeah, we'll create a separate function for that. So after this semicolon right here, where we have all this whole template string, we're going to call show channel info. Oops, show channel data, and let's pass in here the output that we constructed, which is all of this. Okay, so we're going to call that function. I'm just going to put that function right above get channel. So we'll just say display channel data. So we'll say function show channel data, which is going to take in the data. And we're going to assign, let's see, did I do it up here? Because, no, we didn't. All right, so we want to get the channel data ID and assign it here. So I'm going to say channel data equals document dot get element, what the hell, get element by ID, channel dash data, and then we just want to call, let's see, channel, actually let's call it channel data list, because that's what it is. It's a, no, we'll just do channel data, that's fine. And then channel data dot inner HTML is going to be equal to data. So let's save that. Now this channel data ID, if we look at our HTML, is right here. Okay, so it's actually going to get put into this 6-column div. The whole UL, the description, the button, that should all get put into this div, because that's what we targeted here. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So we'll save this, and let me just upload it real quick. And we'll go back and reload, and there we go. Okay, so it's showing us all the title, the ID, subscribers, views, videos, description, visit channel button. Good. So that's working. All right. So now let's make the form work. Okay, before we add the videos down here, let's do the form because it's actually pretty easy. We're going to take the input from the form and just pass it into the get channel function that we've already created. Okay, so let's go back and let's go up to the top here, and I'm going to go here and let's say form submit and change channel. So we have our channel form element, and we want to put an event listener onto it and listen for submit. Okay, when that submit is fired off, we want to put an arrow function here. It's a form, so we want to prevent default so that it doesn't actually submit. And then let's create a variable called channel, and we're going to get that from the channel input. Okay, so channel input is the actual input field, but we want to get the value. So let's say dot value. And then all we have to do is call get channel and pass in the channel. Okay, and that should update the whole UI, because again, it's going to do exactly what happens when the page loads. It's going to call this and then fetch the new channel. It's going to construct all of this stuff, and it's going to call show channel data, pass in the output, and then it's going to render onto the screen. Hopefully, that's what should happen. So let's upload this, and let's try it out. So I'm just going to reload this, and let's put in Google developers, get channel data, cool. Let's say the new Boston, get channel data, cool. If I put something that doesn't work, we get no channel by that name. So now what we have to do is the videos down here. So let's go and do that. Oh, actually, guys, one more thing I wanted to do is when we look at our application, when we look at the channel data, like the subscribers, the views and stuff, I want to put commas where they're supposed to go. And whenever I want to do something like that that has to do with like regular expressions, I'll just do a quick search. So if we say JavaScript numbers with commas, we'll click on the first Stack Overflow post here. And this is usually the question, but underneath it, you'll see any views, anything that has all these upvotes, you usually work. So I'm going to grab this right here and just put that right in here. Now I didn't use arrow functions like this for any other functions, so I'm just going to change this to function like that, just to match the rest. And it's gonna look at the number, use a regular expression to put a comma where it goes. So what I'll do is wrap anything I want to have commas, like the view count. I'm just gonna wrap that in, what is it called? Number with commas. So we'll say number with commas and just wrap that. Okay, so we'll do the same for view count and also for subscriber count. All right, so let's test it out. We'll save. I have to upload, which is a pain in the ass, but it's fine. Let's go back and reload. And there we go. So now you can see that there's commas in there where there needs to be. Cool. So now we can move on to the videos. Now, like I said, it's basically a two-step process. You get the channel information, and then you get the playlist ID, and then get the videos. So what I'll do is in my get channel function, I'm going to go down under where I did the show channel data, and then I'm going to create a variable called playlist ID. So we'll do playlist ID, which we can get from channel.content details. Remember, we saw this in the console from the response, and it has related playlist. Is that right? Related playlist dot uploads. Okay, so that's going to give us that ID, and then we're going to call another function called request video playlist. So request video playlist, and we're going to pass in that playlist ID. Okay, so now let's create the request video playlist function. Let me just put a comment here. Okay, so let's do function request video playlist, and that's going to take in a playlist ID. Okay, playlist ID comes from the first response, and then we need to make another request. So let's create an object here called request options, and we want to put the playlist ID, which comes from the playlist ID that's passed in, and then we also want the part, which is going to be snippet, and then we also want the results. I'm going to say max results. I want 10 videos. Okay, so now we have this object, and we can create a variable called request, and we're going to set this to, we're going to use our GAPI, G-A-P-I object called client.youtube, and then we want to call .playlist items. So playlist items like that, and then we want to call .list, and then pass in our options. Okay, so the request looks pretty much the same as the request for the channel, where we did client.youtube.channels list. Now we're doing client.youtube.playlist Okay, and then we're going to just execute it. So we're going to say request.execute, and that takes in a callback, which will give us a response. And you can use a function if you want. You don't have to use arrow functions. And let's just do a console.log response and see what we get. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, just gonna upload. Now what should happen is I should see two responses when I reload. So let's try it. And there we go. We get our second response, which if we look in items is the 10 videos. Okay, so if we look in snippet, you have the, let's see, it shows you like the channel title, stuff like that, the description of the video. Let's see, where's the title of the video, and thumbnails, resource ID, which is where the actual video ID is. So good, we know that we're actually getting those videos back. So now what we're going to do is go back to VS Code, and inside here, I guess we'll leave the response. Let's create a variable called playlist items. And we're going to set that to the response that we get, and then we want to go into result and then items. Okay, that's the actual array of videos that I showed you. And then we want to check to make sure they're there. So let's say if playlist items. Wait, why do I have two? What's the other playlist items? Oh, it's that. All right. Never mind. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so if playlist items, and let's do an else as well, because if there's no videos, then we want to do something. We want to take our video container, and we want to do .inner HTML equals no uploaded videos. And then if there are videos, if there are playlist items, then we want to construct our output. So I'm going to use let here, and I'm going to set this to, I want an h4 with a class of align center, which is a materialized class to align it to the center. And in here, we're just going to say latest videos. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to loop through the videos, and then we need to append, I just said let. So let output equals that. And then each loop through the video, we need to append to this output variable. Okay, so I'm going to use a for each loop. So let's say loop through videos and append output. So we'll say playlist items dot for each, which takes in a callback. I'm going to use an arrow, and I'm going to call each one item. And let's get the video ID. We're going to need that for the embed. So let's say const video ID, and that's going to be from item dot, and it's in snippet dot resource ID dot video ID. Okay, and just in case that confuses you guys, if we look inside of items, right, we have inside the first, we'll look at the first video, inside snippet we have resource ID, inside there we have video ID. That's how we can grab that, and we need that for the embed because we're embedding the videos into our application. All right, so we're going to get the video ID, and then we're going to take our output, we're going to append to it. Very important, you do plus equals, otherwise you're just going to overwrite what we have here. We don't want to do that. We want to append onto it. And I'm going to append, let's use some backticks here, and for each video I'm going to wrap it in a div with the class of call and s3. Now remember, where this gets output, the video container, is there's a row here, and we're inserting this call s3 inside of the row, okay, inside here. So, and we're going to wrap it, and then we want to put our embed code in here. So to get an example of that, I'm just going to go to YouTube real quick. And let's see, I'll just go to, this video here, and we'll go to share and click embed and just grab this iframe. All right, so we'll grab that and let's go back and paste that in. Now, instead of just having a hard-coded ID right here, we want to replace it with whatever the ID of the current video in the current loop. So let's say video ID, okay, which we got from right here. So once we do that, actually we want to change the width, because otherwise it's going to be 560. I want to do 100%, which will just fill its container, its column, and then we'll set the height to auto. All right, and then finally we just want to output it. So actually we want to go outside of the loop, which ends right here, and just say output videos. So we'll take the video container and say inner HTML equals the output, and save that. Let's go ahead and upload that. Actually, align center, this should be center align. All right. Okay, let's test it out and reload. And there's our videos. Awesome. So if we were to change this to, let's say, Google developers. Okay, so all the data over here changes, and we also get their latest videos. All right, now one small thing that's bothering me is the space here. I just want to push this latest videos down a little bit. Also, this button I want to make a little darker on the white text. So real quick, I'm just going to go to the index HTML, and let's see, let's change, actually what button is that? That's the form button, right? So lighten 2, let's just change it to, we'll just do gray. So I'll save that, and then in the main.js where we have the h4, I'm just going to put a br right here, just simple, don't really care. We could add styling, but whatever, it's fine. I just don't like the way it looks. So let's put that up and reload. And there we go. So now that's moved down a little bit, and this button's a little darker. All right, so that's going to do it, guys. We can log out and everything goes away. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it gave you a good idea of how to use the YouTube API in your own projects. I know it's a little confusing, especially I know there's a ton of documentation. Hopefully this cleared things up a little bit and you enjoyed watching the video, and hopefully you did the project as well. All right, so thanks, and I will see you in the next one. Hey guys, this video is sponsored by Coding Phase. Coding Phase offers courses to help you learn to build real-life projects and advance your career. With courses in technologies like React, Node.js, Laravel, Python, you'll be on your way to becoming a professional developer. You have the options to buy courses outright or to pay a very low monthly fee and get access to every single course. So check out codingphase.com or click the link in the description below to receive 50% off.